Imagine the United States in the early 1950s, interstates carving fresh gray ribbons across endless plains, neon signs flickering outside roadside diners, and families piling into shiny new Chevrolets for cross-country adventures. Air travel, once reserved for the military and the very rich, was suddenly within reach of business travelers and honeymooners. For Greyhound, America's undisputed bus titan, this new reality spelled trouble. If people could fly faster or drive in the comfort of their own cars, why would they board a bus? Greyhound's answer wasn't a marketing slogan, it was a machine. They envisioned a coach so beautiful it would stop drivers in their tracks, so luxurious it would make passengers forget about planes, and so futuristic it would embody the very spirit of the open road. The result was the Greyhound Scenic Cruiser, a 40-foot land yacht with sweeping glass windows and the promise of effortless travel. But hidden beneath its glamorous skin was an engineering experiment that defied logic: twin diesel engines, a labyrinth of hydraulics, and a drivetrain that would challenge the patience of every mechanic who dared to service it. This is the story of a bus that became a legend not for perfection, but for ambition and the chaos it unleashed. Number 1. America at a crossroads. Post-war America was a nation addicted to motion. Veterans returned home eager to explore the country they had fought to protect, and a booming economy gave them the means to do it. President Eisenhower's ambitious interstate highway plan promised a coast-to-coast network of smooth concrete that could shrink the continent to a weekend drive. Detroit's assembly lines flooded the market with affordable sedans, while airlines, once a novelty, lured the well-heeled with the romance of jet travel. For decades, Greyhound had been the unquestioned king of long-distance ground transportation, moving millions of passengers between small towns and big cities. But by the early 1950s, executives could feel the ground shifting beneath their wheels. Buses were becoming a second-choice option, a compromise for those who couldn't afford a car or a ticket to fly. Greyhound's leadership feared irrelevance. They needed a statement so bold it would remind Americans that the bus wasn't a relic of the Depression era but a futuristic gateway to adventure. Their answer would have to be bigger than a marketing campaign. It required a vehicle that looked and felt like tomorrow. Number 2. Dreaming bigger than a bus. Enter Orville Caesar, Greyhound's visionary and hard-driving president. Caesar believed that transportation could inspire the same excitement as a new skyscraper or a rocket launch. He challenged his engineers and designers to imagine a coach that would draw stairs at every depot and rest atop a machine that passengers would brag about riding. He demanded features unheard of in commercial buses: a sweeping upper deck lounge with panoramic glass, plush seating that rivaled first-class rail cars, air conditioning powerful enough to tame a desert summer, and a restroom that allowed coast-to-coast travel without unscheduled stops. More than comfort, Caesar wanted symbolism. This new flagship would prove that the United States was still the land of big dreams and fearless design. He called it America's land yacht, a phrase meant to capture both luxury and the endless possibilities of the open highway. It wasn't enough for the new coach to transport people. It had to embody progress itself. With that challenge laid down, Greyhound's next step was to find a designer whose work already defined modern elegance, someone who could transform a humble bus into a moving piece of industrial art. Number 3. The industrial designer's touch. To elevate the project beyond mere transportation, Greyhound turned to Raymond Loewy, the French-born industrial designer already celebrated for reshaping everything from locomotives to refrigerators. Loewy believed machines should move the soul as much as they moved people, and he approached the Scenic Cruiser as a rolling sculpture. His team sketched bold contours that echoed jet-age optimism: a split-level silhouette with a dramatic raised roofline, wraparound glass panels that glittered like a cruise ship's observation deck, and chrome accents that caught every glint of sunlight. Loewy's mantra, most advanced yet acceptable, guided every curve and rivet. The upper lounge, perched like a crown, would give passengers sweeping vistas of mountains and prairie, while the lower deck offered a cocoon of quiet luxury. This wasn't a bus meant to blend into traffic. It was designed to command attention at 60 miles an hour. Greyhound executives knew they had found the perfect architect for their gamble, someone who could turn steel and glass into a symbol of American confidence. With Loewy's blueprints in hand, Greyhound set the stage for a vehicle that looked more spaceship than coach. Number 4. Engineering the impossible. Design was only half the challenge. Building a 40-foot, two-level coach that met Greyhound's demands meant rewriting the rulebook on bus construction. The chosen manufacturer, General Motors' Yellow Coach Division, faced the tricky task of combining cutting-edge style with roadworthy durability. Weight distribution became a nightmare. The raised observation deck threatened to make the vehicle top-heavy. To keep the ride stable, engineers stretched the wheelbase and reinforced the frame with aircraft-style aluminum ribs, the choice that reduced weight but introduced new vibration issues. Then came the propulsion dilemma. One massive diesel engine powerful enough to move such a giant would have been expensive and difficult to service on rural routes. The radical solution? Two smaller Detroit diesel 4-71 engines mounted side by side, each driving a single crankshaft through a complex coupling. On paper, it offered redundancy and easier maintenance. In practice, it meant a web of linkages, belts, and synchronization challenges that would haunt mechanics for years. But in the fevered optimism of the early 1950s, the twin-engine setup symbolized innovation, and Greyhound signed off on the gamble. Number 5. Rolling out the future. By 1954, the first prototypes emerged from GM's assembly lines, gleaming in silver and blue, their massive panoramic windows reflecting the optimism of a nation on the move. Greyhound orchestrated a publicity blitz worthy of a Hollywood premiere. Reporters were invited to exclusive preview rides. Photographers captured the Scenic Cruiser gliding past city skylines and across desert highways like a vision of tomorrow. When the first fleet of 1001 buses entered service in 1954 and 1955, passengers marveled at the wide reclining seats, the quiet hum of air conditioning, and the elevated view from the upper lounge. Travelers wrote letters describing the sensation of floating above the road, of seeing America's vast landscapes unfold like a cinematic panorama. For a brief moment, Greyhound had its triumph. Ticket sales jumped, rival carriers scrambled to copy the design, and the Scenic Cruiser became a rolling ambassador of mid-century optimism. Yet behind the curtain of glamour, mechanics were already discovering that those twin engines and exotic hydraulics were far less cooperative than the marketing promised attention that would soon reshape the legend. Number 6. Early cracks in the dream. Within months of the Scenic Cruiser's nationwide debut, the glow of innovation began to dawn. Maintenance crews across Greyhound's vast network filed a steady trickle of reports: overheating clutches, stubborn gear synchronizers, and nagging vibration in the upper deck that rattled light fixtures loose. The twin Detroit diesel engines, marvels on paper, required perfect harmony to deliver power smoothly. When even a slight misalignment occurred, one engine shouldered more of the load, straining bearings and belching black smoke. Drivers learned to carry extra earplugs. The combined roar at full throttle could drown out conversation. Passengers adored the futuristic lounge, but the elevated seating amplified every bump, producing a subtle sway that made some travelers queasy. Greyhound's own mechanics grumbled that accessing the paired power plants demanded gymnastics, with tight clearances turning routine repairs into half-day ordeals. These weren't catastrophic failures, at least not yet, but they hinted that the dazzling icon might become a maintenance nightmare. A reality that marketing brochures carefully avoided while the public remained starry-eyed. Number 7. Mechanics at their limit. By the second year of service, What began as scattered complaints hardened into systemic frustration. Small towns along Greyhound's transcontinental routes lacked the specialized tools and training to tame the Scenic Cruiser's quirks. Synchronizing the dual engines required an almost musical ear, and missteps could shear belts or snap linkages in the middle of a night run. Replacement parts often had to be shipped from regional hubs, stranding buses and passengers for hours. Drivers devised unofficial rituals, tapping the throttle twice before shifting, feathering the clutch on long grades to coax the machines into cooperation. But no amount of finesse could fully mask design flaws. Hydraulic leveling systems leaked. The upper deck windows occasionally fogged and dripped onto unlucky travelers. And the complex electrical wiring baffled even seasoned technicians. What was meant to be a proud symbol of progress began to drain company coffers as overtime hours soared. For Greyhound, the dream of effortless luxury collided head-on with the gritty realities of nationwide bus service. Number 8. Public perception shifts. Passengers, initially dazzled, started to notice the cracks. Stories circulated of trips delayed overnight because a small Midwest garage couldn't tame the twin-engine beast. Travel columnists who once hailed the Scenic Cruiser as a rolling palace began penning cautious critiques, noting that comfort meant little when schedules unraveled. Competitors seized the moment. Trailways and regional carriers promoted their simpler, single-engine coaches as dependable alternatives. Greyhound's advertising department fought back with glossy magazine spreads and radio spots promising engineering precision. But the whisper network of weary travelers carried more weight. Still, many riders remained captivated by the upper-deck panorama and the sense of cruising through a space-age future. The Scenic Cruiser retained its aura of glamour, yet a quiet unease settled in an awareness that beauty sometimes comes with a hidden cost. For Greyhound executives, the challenge was no longer merely mechanical. It was about preserving the legend before public opinion turned completely, threatening the company's biggest investment of the decade. Number 9. The cost of prestige. Greyhound's accountants soon realized that the Scenic Cruiser's elegance came with a punishing price tag. Routine upkeep cost nearly twice that of a standard single-engine coach. Every depot visit demanded specialized attention, double the fuel filters, double the belts, and intricate synchronization that only a handful of top mechanics could perform correctly. Spare parts for the dual power plants were expensive, and the custom upper deck windows imported from a specialty manufacturer cracked more often than predicted. While passengers paid a slight premium for the Scenic Cruiser experience, the added fare barely dented the swelling maintenance budget. Executives quietly debated whether the marketing benefits justified the losses. Some argued the bus remained an irreplaceable icon, a traveling billboard that kept Greyhound in the national conversation. Others warned that each breakdown eroded brand loyalty and profits. Behind closed doors, balance sheets told a sobering story. Glamour alone could not sustain a fleet bleeding money on every mile. Number 10. Attempts at a fix. Determined not to abandon their flagship, Greyhound and General Motors launched a series of engineering campaigns to tame the beast. Service bulletins ordered new clutch assemblies, reinforced engine mounts, and improved cooling systems. Mechanics retrofitted heavier-duty hydraulic lines and installed upgraded gearboxes to handle the punishing torque of two engines working in tandem. In some depots, teams experimented with staggered maintenance schedules to keep buses on the road while awaiting scarce parts. Greyhound even dispatched mobile troubleshooter squads, elite mechanics who roamed the country tackling chronic issues in the field. For a while, these interventions steadied the fleet. Passengers noticed fewer sudden delays, and corporate newsletters trumpeted the Scenic Cruiser's renewed reliability. Yet the underlying complexity never truly disappeared. Each improvement added more weight and cost, and the twin-engine configuration remained a delicate dance that demanded constant vigilance, a fact that would eventually force Greyhound to consider a radical decision. Number 11. a radical overhaul. By the late 1950s, the writing was on the wall. After years of incremental fixes, Greyhound approved a sweeping and expensive conversion program, replacing the twin 4-to-71 engines with a single, more powerful Detroit diesel 8V71. The project required cutting into the bus's frames, rerouting wiring, and installing new transmissions, essentially rebuilding each Scenic Cruiser from the ground up. It was a logistical marathon. Hundreds of coaches cycled through specialized shops, emerging months later with simplified drivetrains and upgraded components. The cost approached tens of millions of dollars, a staggering figure for the era, but executives framed it as an investment in reliability and brand preservation. Drivers welcomed the change. The new engines delivered smoother power and easier maintenance. Passengers rarely noticed the difference beyond a quieter ride. While the overhaul extended the fleet's life, it underscored the original miscalculation. Greyhound had pursued futuristic glamour without fully accounting for the practical realities of nationwide service. Number 12. The retrofit revolution. Greyhound's decision to replace the Scenic Cruiser's twin 4-to-71 diesels with a single 8-volt 7.1 V8 was more than a mechanical fix. It was a corporate survival move. By the late 1950s, the fleet's reputation was fraying. Newspaper columns mocked breakdowns, drivers complained of endless double-clutching, and passengers shared roadside horror stories. Greyhound launched a retrofit program that remains one of the largest mechanical overhauls in U.S. bus history. Each of the 1,001 coaches had to be stripped almost to the frame, engine mounts refabricated, transmission tunnels widened, hydraulic lines rerouted. It wasn't quick or cheap. Some depots reported a single coach spending more than a month off the road. But the results were immediate. The big Detroit 8V71 offered more torque with half the moving parts, giving the buses a smoother idle and a muscular climb through the Rockies. Drivers who once dreaded the Scenic Cruiser began to praise its single-engine heartbeat, and Greyhound used the retrofit as a public relations lifeline, advertising the new power plants as a mark of progress rather than an admission of failure. Number 13. Riding in a rolling hotel. While mechanics wrestled with wrenches, passengers continued to discover why the Scenic Cruiser was worth the ticket. Step aboard, and the first sensation was light. Wraparound glass poured the landscape into the cabin. Children scrambled for the coveted front row observation seats where the road seemed to run directly beneath their feet. Greyhound's designers had anticipated long journeys and subtle discomforts. The multicolored crossweave upholstery hid stains and gave the cabin a cozy modern feel. Overhead, discreet vents pushed chilled air that was a revelation in an era when many cars still sweltered. A separate restroom, with stainless steel fixtures and a full-length mirror, spared passengers the roadside waits that plagued other bus lines. Even the luggage bays below were oversized, swallowing steamer trunks and the occasional upright bass. Some premium routes added uniformed attendants who offered soft drinks or guided travelers through scenic landmarks, a service closer to railcar luxury than typical bus travel. These touches made the Scenic Cruiser feel less like public transit and more like a rolling hotel lobby with a moving picture window. Number 14. From bus to cultural icon. By the early 1960s, the Scenic Cruiser had grown beyond a mere vehicle. Its silhouette, long, low, and unmistakably modern, became a visual shorthand for the romance of the American highway. Advertisements showed young couples gazing through its panoramic windows as the desert blurred outside, selling not just tickets, but the dream of boundless travel. Hollywood noticed. Scenic Cruisers appeared in road trip comedies, in gritty dramas, and in countless travel posters that decorated college dorm rooms and bus stations alike. Folk singers referenced the big glass bus in lyrics about restless wanderers, and painters captured its reflective panels glinting beneath neon motel signs. For many Americans, especially those without cars or plane tickets, the coach represented freedom, a way to chase work love, or pure adventure across state lines for only a handful of dollars. Greyhound leaned into this identity, launching ad campaigns that promised America at eye level and urging riders to go Greyhound and leave the driving to us. The Scenic Cruiser was no longer just Greyhound's flagship. It was an emblem of mid-century mobility itself. Number 15. Engineering lessons learned. The retrofit era transformed Greyhound's engineering culture. Before the Scenic Cruiser, the company had trusted General Motors to deliver a nearly turnkey product. The painful dual-engine experiment changed that relationship forever. Greyhound established its own technical advisory board staffed by veteran drivers, depot mechanics, and independent engineers. They documented every recurring failure from hydraulic leaks to drive shaft vibrations and created a feedback pipeline that influenced every new coach ordered afterward. GM, humbled by the public embarrassment, worked side by side with Greyhound to refine the 8V7-1 installation and to create more standardized maintenance manuals. Training programs were rewritten so that a rookie mechanic in Des Moines could service the complex hydraulic system with the same confidence as a senior tech in Los Angeles. By the mid-1960s, Greyhound garages were miniature engineering schools where apprentices learned not only to repair but also to think critically about design flaws. This new rigor became a quiet legacy of the Scenic Cruiser. It forced America's largest bus company to evolve from a buyer of equipment into a true partner in vehicle development, shaping the dependable intercity coaches of the decades that followed. Number 16. The changing travel landscape. Even as Greyhound perfected its fleet, the wider transportation world was shifting beneath its wheels. Commercial aviation was shedding its image of elite exclusivity. Jet airliners like the Boeing 707 and Douglas DC-8 slashed coast-to-coast travel times, tempting middle-class families who once relied on overnight buses. Meanwhile, America's growing highway system encouraged car ownership on a scale never seen before. Families piled into station wagons for vacations that, a decade earlier, might have meant a Greyhound ticket, yet the Scenic Cruiser managed to hold a special niche. College students, military recruits, and adventurous retirees still embraced the bus for its unbeatable value and the unique social tapestry aboard. Salesmen swapping stories with farmhands, tourists trading postcards with musicians. In many ways, the coach became a moving snapshot of mid-century America itself, where class and region blurred for a few hundred miles. The challenge for Greyhound was to market that experience not as second best for flying or driving, but as something authentically American or rolling commons, where the journey mattered as much as the destination. Number 17. Preservation and enthusiast revival. By the late 1970s, most Scenic Cruisers had been retired, sold to private operators, or scrapped for parts. Yet the affection for their daring design never died. A handful of bus enthusiasts, many of them former Greyhound drivers, began rescuing neglected coaches from storage yards and rural fields. Restorations were heroic undertakings, sourcing curved panoramic glass from defunct suppliers, fabricating obsolete hydraulic fittings, and hunting down original low-pattern seat fabric. Clubs formed across the country, trading technical drawings and spare parts at annual rallies. Museums, such as the Museum of Bus Transportation in Pennsylvania, acquired fully restored examples, while a few independent owners converted their cruisers into gleaming motorhomes that still turn heads at classic vehicle shows. Online forums later amplified the movement, sharing stories of epic cross-country drives and lovingly rebuilt machines. Each preserved Scenic Cruiser stands as both artifact and testament not only to mid-century design daring, but for the passion of those who refuse to let an icon of American mobility vanish into rust and memory. Number 18. Legacy on the highway and in the mind. Even after the last Scenic Cruiser left Greyhound's active roster, its influence lingered on America's roads and in the national imagination. Designers of later highway coaches from the GNC Buffalo to MCI's iconic NC series borrowed unmistakable cues from its deck-and-a-half silhouette, the slightly raised observation section, and those sweeping wraparound windows. Even competitors, who once mocked Greyhound's glass palace, quietly adopted larger window panes, better sightlines, and more spacious luggage holds. What had begun as a daring experiment in the 1950s became the template for modern intercity travel. The Scenic Cruiser also left a cultural shadow larger than its production run. In vintage postcards, the bus often appears cresting a desert ridge or gliding past neon-lit diners, a moving emblem of freedom and possibility. Artists of the 1970s embraced that imagery, painting it into album covers and roadside murals as shorthand for the restless American spirit. Writers used it as a symbol of reinvention, a place where strangers shared confidences at 3 a.m. while the prairie slipped by in moonlight. Preservationists helped cement that reputation. By the late 1980s, restored cruisers began appearing at transportation museums and classic vehicle rallies, drawing crowds who were too young to remember their heyday but instantly captivated by their futuristic profile. A handful of independent owners converted surviving coaches into elegant motorhomes, complete with teak interiors and hidden modern drivetrains, proving that the design could adapt to a new century. Filmmakers took notice, casting these rare survivors in period dramas and documentaries to evoke the optimism of mid-century travel. Even today, enthusiasts scour auction sites for original low-E-seat fabric or rare hydraulic components, determined to keep the legend alive. More than a piece of machinery, the Scenic Cruiser became a moving metaphor for post-war America, bold enough to gamble on untested ideas, willing to learn from failure, and confident that the open road could connect a vast, diverse nation. Its twin-engine missteps, far from tarnishing the story, only deepened the mystique, proof that innovation is rarely neat or easy. Every time a gleaming, restored cruiser rolls onto a modern interstate, heads still turn, cameras still click, and that half-century-old promise of adventure hums again beneath the glass canopy. Number 19. Modern echoes of a mid-century dream, half a century after its last commercial run. The Scenic Cruiser still exerts a magnetic pull on engineers, designers, and everyday travelers who sense something almost prophetic in its sweeping lines. In an age of high-speed trains and electric buses, the cruiser's deck-and-a-half layout feels unexpectedly current. Contemporary coach builders study its clever packaging, elevated seating for panoramic views above a low-slung luggage hold as they develop double-deck and electric drive concepts for crowded cities. Transit historians point to the cruiser as a reminder that bold design often outpaces technology. Greyhound envisioned a luxury experience that its mechanical systems simply weren't ready to support. That tension between aspiration and reality is precisely what makes the vehicle so fascinating to modern innovators. The internet has amplified this fascination. Online forums and social media groups host thousands of members who trade restoration tips, scan old maintenance manuals, and post photographs of surviving coaches simmering beneath LED shop lights. Virtual reality enthusiasts have even created digital replicas, allowing users to board a Scenic Cruiser and gaze through its signature wraparound glass while simulated highways stream past. Documentary filmmakers interview retired Greyhound drivers who recall the unique rhythm of the big bus, the hiss of the hydraulics, the subtle sway as it crested mountain passes, the quiet camaraderie of passengers on overnight trips. Collectors, too, keep the legend alive. Auction houses occasionally list a rare Scenic Cruiser, and bidding wars can drive prices higher than many contemporary luxury motorhomes. Some owners retrofit their finds with modern diesel or hybrid drivetrains, marrying 21st century reliability with mid-century glamour. Others preserve them exactly as they were, down to the multicolored Lowy upholstery, so visitors can step into a perfectly frozen slice of 1956 in either form. These restorations serve as moving monuments to American ambition. Every time a restored cruiser glides onto an interstate, its polished aluminum skin catching the sun, it bridges decades, reminding onlookers that the desire to travel in style and comfort is timeless. What began as Greyhound's audacious gamble has become an enduring lesson. Innovation is rarely simple, but the vision it sparks can echo far beyond its original era. Number 20. The road that never ends. Today only a few dozen scenic cruisers remain, some carefully restored, others slumbering in barns or gathering dust in remote fields. Yet their impact still ripples through American culture. Stand beside one, and you feel the ambition of a nation that once believed the open road could bind 50 states together. Its broad windows nearer the sky. Its long, low body still looks like motion captured in metal. Children who once pressed their noses to that glass are grandparents now. But many remember the gentle sway of a night ride across the plains, the soft rumble of the engine, and the thrill of waking to a sunrise over an unfamiliar horizon. Transportation historians often call the cruiser a beautiful failure, a phrase meant as praise. It proved that wrist and imagination can create something unforgettable even when the technology of the day struggles to keep up. Greyhound's costly twin-engine misstep forced hard lessons in engineering discipline, while its retrofit success showed how persistence can rescue a dream. Modern electric coaches with panoramic roof and quiet drive trains owe more than they admit to those 1950s experiments. Designers continue to study the cruiser's proportions, the way its elevated lounge gave passengers a commanding view without destabilizing the chassis, and how its sleek profile suggested speed even at a standstill. But the greatest legacy is less mechanical than emotional. The Scenic Cruiser invites people to see travel not just as a way to reach a destination, but as an experience in itself, a moving theater of landscapes and fleeting encounters. Every restored example that rumbles to life at a rally or museum sparks that feeling again, the promise of an unhurried journey, of stories shared between strangers, of America rolling past at window height. In an era obsessed with instant arrival, the cruiser whispers an older truth that the road itself can be the reward. Its story, a mix of triumph and trouble, remains a testament to vision, resilience, and the enduring romance of the highway. Long after the last engine falls silent, the Scenic Cruiser keeps traveling, if only in memory and in the imaginations of those who still yearn for the long, open road.